The massive window on the bridge of the Relentless showed endless stars stretching into the darkness of space. Admiral James Thompson stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. The quiet hum of the ship's systems filled the air as crew members worked at their stations, their fingers dancing across holographic displays. The peace shattered when red warning lights flooded the bridge. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rogers called out from his monitoring station, his voice tight with urgency. Multiple quantum signatures detected approaching from the Orion arm. "It's the Dominion fleet, sir. They've somehow bypassed our early warning network." Thompson didn't flinch. 20 years of commanding humanity's forces had taught him to keep his emotions in check. He turned slowly, his steel-gray eyes scanning the tactical display that sprang to life in the center of the bridge. The hologram showed hundreds of enemy ships moving through space like a swarm of angry wasps. "How many?" Thompson asked, his voice steady and calm. "Over 700 vessels, sir. 3 times our current fleet strength at the Perseus Gateway." Rogers wiped sweat from his forehead. "They're using some kind of new technology. Our sensors barely pick them up even at close range." The bridge crew held their breath, waiting for their admiral's response. The Perseus Gateway was humanity's most important strategic asset, a massive space station that controlled access to 12 human colony systems. Losing it would cripple Earth's defenses and leave millions vulnerable. Thompson walked to the tactical display, studying the enemy formation. His mind raced through dozens of scenarios, years of combat experience, helping him see patterns where others saw chaos. The Dominion ships were arranged in an unusual pattern, not their typical aggressive assault formation. "Send word to all ships," Thompson said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Battle stations, but hold position." He raised his hand to stop the flood of protests he knew were coming. "And get me a secure channel to Fleet Command." Minutes later, the stern face of Fleet Admiral Martinez appeared on the main screen. "James, tell me you're falling back to the secondary line. We can't lose the Relentless and her crew in a hopeless battle." Thompson shook his head. "Look at their formation, sir. It's defensive. They're protecting their flanks against something, but not us. They're running from something." Martinez's eyes widened as he studied the tactical data streaming across his screen. "Even if you're right, we can't match their numbers. The Gateway Defense Fleet is all we have in the sector." "The Gateway was built to be defended, sir. Its quantum barriers can hold against 3 times the firepower they're bringing." Thompson zoomed in on the holographic display. "And I noticed something else. Their ships are damaged. Look at the energy signatures. They're running hot, like they've been in continuous combat." A long silence followed as Martinez processed the information. Thompson continued, "If we retreat now, we lose our best defensive position and let a potentially wounded enemy regroup. But if we hold our ground..." He let the implications hang in the air. Martinez rubbed his temples. "The civilian government will have my head for this, James, but you've never steered us wrong before." He straightened in his chair. "You have authorization to hold position, but if things go south, you get our people out of there. That's an order." "Understood, sir." Thompson out. The screen went dark. The Admiral turned to his crew, who waited anxiously for orders. "Send word to all ships. Battle formations Delta and Epsilon. I want our heavy cruisers using the Gateway's shadow for cover. Position our frigates for maximum firing solutions along these vectors." His fingers traced lines through the holographic display. "And get me a direct line to every ship captain. They deserve to hear the plan from me." As his crew rushed to comply, Thompson allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion thought they knew humanity's playbook: retreat in the face of overwhelming odds, live to fight another day. But sometimes humanity's greatest strength was its unpredictability. Sometimes the best defense was to stand your ground when everyone expected you to run. The enemy fleet would arrive in less than 6 hours. Thompson had until then to turn an impossible situation into humanity's finest hour. The crew of the Relentless worked with renewed purpose, their earlier fear replaced by determination. They trusted their admiral, and more importantly, they trusted each other. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the window, unaware that they were about to witness either a glorious victory or a noble last stand. Either way, humanity would face it standing tall. Deep within the Relentless, in a cramped maintenance tunnel filled with blinking lights and humming equipment, Maria Roberts cursed under her breath. The quantum communications array was acting up again, and she had less than 6 hours to get it working perfectly before the Dominion fleet arrived. "Hand me the phase spanner," she called out to her assistant Tom, who quickly passed the tool through the narrow opening. The device's worn handle felt familiar in her grip as she adjusted the delicate crystals that formed the heart of the array. A strange pattern caught her eye on the diagnostic screen, a repeating signal buried deep in the background radiation. She had spent 15 years working with quantum communications, but she had never seen anything like this before. "Tom, are you seeing this?" She pointed to the screen, where the signal pulsed with an unnatural regularity. "Run a deep scan on that frequency." The results made her breath catch in her throat. The signal wasn't random noise. It was a message, encoded in a way that seemed both alien and oddly familiar. As the computer worked to decode it, fragments began appearing on her screen. "This is impossible," she whispered, her eyes growing wide as technical diagrams filled the display. The design showed weapon systems far beyond anything humans had ever created or even imagined. But the truly shocking part was the age of the signal. According to the decay pattern, it had been hidden in the background radiation for over 50,000 years. Maria's fingers flew across the keyboard, saving everything she could. "Get me a secure line to Engineering Command, Priority 1. She kept working as she waited for the connection, her mind racing through the implications of what she was seeing. The signal contained more than just weapon designs. There were star charts, tactical information, and what looked like historical records. They told a story of an ancient race that had once fought the Dominion and won. But victory had come at a terrible cost. "Engineering Command, this is Senior Officer Phillips. What's your emergency, Roberts?" Maria took a deep breath. "Sir, I found something in the quantum background radiation, something that could change everything about this battle." She began transmitting the data, watching as the officer's expression changed from skepticism to astonishment. "How sure are you about this?" Phillips asked, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "The physics are solid, sir. These weapons designs, they're like nothing we've ever seen, but they're built on principles we understand. With our current technology, we could adapt them, build them." She paused, checking another set of readings. "And sir, according to these records, they were specifically designed to counter Dominion shield technology." Phillips was silent for a long moment, studying the data scrolling across his screen. "Keep this quiet for now. I'm sending a team to help you decode the rest of the signal. If this is what it appears to be, it could save us all," Maria finished. As she closed the connection, her hands were shaking with a mixture of excitement and fear. The ancient race had left this message as a gift to whoever found it, a way to fight back against the Dominion. But they had also left a warning, one that made her blood run cold. The weapons had worked too well. They had driven the Dominion back, yes, but they had also drawn the attention of something far worse, something that had ultimately led to the ancient race's extinction. Tom touched her shoulder, bringing her back to the present. "What do we do now?" Maria looked at the warning one more time, then made her decision. With the Dominion fleet approaching and humanity's back against the wall, they didn't have the luxury of worrying about distant threats. They needed these weapons, and they needed them now. "We build it," she said firmly, already beginning to adapt the ancient designs to human technology. "We build it all." The quantum communications array hummed around them, still broadcasting its ancient message into space. But now, after 50,000 years, someone was finally listening. The real question was whether humanity would have time to use this knowledge before the Dominion arrived, and whether they would live to regret it if they did. David Cooper's office in the intelligence wing of the Relentless was small and dark, lit only by the glow of multiple screens. He rubbed his tired eyes as he studied the contents of the captured Dominion data crystals for the 100th time. Something wasn't adding up about this invasion fleet. A soft chime from his computer made him look up. The decryption program had finally broken through another layer of Dominion security. New data flooded his screens, and what he saw made him sit up straight in his chair. "Computer, translate and verify," he ordered, his fingers drumming nervously on his desk. The artificial intelligence worked quickly, converting the alien text into English. As he read, the blood drained from his face. The Dominion wasn't invading. They were running. Fleet logs showed thousands of Dominion worlds going dark over the past year. Not destroyed by weapons or natural disasters, but simply erased. The Dominion called it the Void, and they were terrified of it. Each report grew more desperate as this unknown force consumed system after system. David pulled up a star chart and plotted the pattern of lost worlds. His hand started shaking when he saw the result. The Void was moving in a straight line through space, and that line pointed directly at Earth and its colonies. The Dominion fleet wasn't heading for the Perseus Gateway by chance. It was the only safe route they had left. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Thompson. "Sir, you need to see this immediately." David transmitted the translated data, watching the Admiral's face grow grim as he read. "Are you certain about this translation?" Thompson asked. "Yes, sir. I've cross-referenced it with multiple sources." David pulled up more files. "There's something else. The Dominion. They're too proud to ask for help. Instead of telling us the truth, they'd rather take our space by force than admit they need sanctuary." Thompson was quiet for a moment, processing this information. How long until this Void reaches their remaining territory? David checked the calculations. Based on its current speed, less than a month. "Sir, we're not just fighting an invasion fleet. We're dealing with refugees who think conquest is better than cooperation. And if we destroy them here, we'll face this Void alone." Thompson added, understanding dawning in his eyes. A new alert flashed on David's screen. Another decoded file, this one containing visual data. He opened it, and his office filled with a holographic recording from a Dominion scout ship. The footage showed a wall of absolute darkness moving through space, swallowing light itself. Stars disappeared into it, leaving nothing behind. "Sir," David's voice was barely a whisper, "I think you should see this too." They watched in silence as the recording showed the Void consuming an entire solar system. It wasn't violent or explosive. Everything simply ceased to exist when the darkness touched it. The recording ended abruptly as the darkness reached for the scout ship. "Get me everything you can on this Void," Thompson ordered. "And David, good work. This changes everything." After the Admiral's image disappeared, David turned back to his screens. He had 4 hours left before the Dominion fleet arrived. 4 hours to find something, anything, that might help humanity face not one but two existential threats. He began typing faster, diving deeper into the Dominion records. Their fastest ships, their strongest weapons, had been useless against the Void. But humans had a history of finding solutions where others saw only hopelessness. A message popped up from engineering about some ancient weapon designs they'd discovered. David allowed himself a small smile. Maybe, just maybe, humanity's greatest challenge would turn into its finest moment. But first, they had to convince a proud alien empire that survival required something harder than fighting. It required trust. The scout ship Wanderer drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of the Perseus Gateway's sensor range. Captain Robert Blake watched through the viewport as chunks of destroyed ships floated past. Some human, some Dominion. His small vessel's stealth systems were the only thing keeping them alive out here. "Contact, bearing 270, whispered Lisa, his sensor officer. "Small vessel, running dark like us. Dominion design, but different." Blake leaned forward in his chair, The approaching ship didn't match any known Dominion military patterns. Its energy signature was muted, and its hull had been stripped of all Imperial markings. A deserter, maybe, or something else entirely. A transmission cut through the silence, tight beam, and encrypted. Not the usual Dominion battle channels. Unknown human vessel, a voice said in careful English. We mean no harm. We seek dialogue. Blake exchanged looks with his crew. This was definitely not standard Dominion behavior. After a moment's consideration, he nodded to his communications officer. This is Captain Blake of the scout ship Wanderer. Identify yourself. I am Commander Tech of the Free Ships, the voice replied. What I have to tell you must be shared with your leaders immediately. The force approaching the gateway. They do not speak for all of us. Blake's tactical officer tensed, hands hovering over the weapon's controls. But Blake raised a hand to wait. Something about the commander's tone rang true. Prove your intentions, Blake said. In response, the Dominion ship powered down its weapons and engines completely. A gesture of absolute trust, or supreme foolishness. Blake made his decision. Match their status, he ordered his crew. Power down everything except life support and comms. Minutes later, Blake sat across from Commander Tech in the Wanderer's small conference room. The Dominion officer was tall and imposing, like all his kind, but his posture spoke of weariness rather than aggression. Your ancestors helped us once, Tech said without preamble. Long ago, before the Empire forgot its history, they stood with us against a darkness that threatened both our peoples. Blake's mind raced to the intelligence reports he'd received about some ancient signal discovered in the quantum array. And now that darkness is back. Tech's eyes widened slightly. You know of the void. We're learning. Blake leaned forward. But why come to us now? Your fleet will reach the gateway in less than 3 hours. Because this time, we're making the wrong choice. Tech placed a data crystal on the table. The High Command would rather die fighting for new territory than admit they need help. But some of us remember the old alliance. Some of us believe we can face the void together, or not at all. Blake picked up the crystal. How many ships follow you? 87, hidden in the asteroid fields beyond the gateway. Smaller vessels mostly, but well armed. We've been waiting, watching, hoping someone would listen. Tech's expression hardened. The High Command calls us traitors. Perhaps we are, but we'd rather be traitors to pride than to reason. Blake's communication officer burst into the room. Sir, the Admiral needs to see this immediately. The screen on the wall lit up with a tactical display. The main Dominion fleet had suddenly changed formation. They were no longer approaching in an attack pattern. They were spreading out in a defensive screen, facing away from human space. It's here, Tech whispered, all composure gone. The void has followed us. Blake stood up, decision made. How fast can you get your ships to the gateway? You would trust us. Tech seemed genuinely surprised. Trust goes both ways, Commander. You powered down your ship first. Blake managed a grim smile. Besides, if that thing out there is as bad as you say, we're going to need every ship we can get. As Tech left to contact his fleet, Blake watched the tactical display with growing concern. The darkness was barely visible at extreme sensor range, but it was there, a wall of nothingness moving steadily toward both human and Dominion space. 3 hours until the main fleet arrived. 4 hours until the void reached them. Not much time to turn bitter enemies into allies, but humans had done more with less. They would have to, if any of them wanted to see tomorrow. Steam hissed from damaged pipes as Maria Roberts and her engineering team worked frantically in the Relentless's main testing chamber. The prototype weapon, now called Project Dawn, sat in the center of the room like a sleeping giant. Its silver surface reflected the red emergency lights that had been flashing since the void's approach was confirmed. Power levels at 60%, Tom called out from his station. The quantum core is stable, but we're still not generating enough energy for a full firing sequence. Maria wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of grease across her skin. The ancient weapon designs were brilliant, but adapting them to human technology was proving harder than expected. They needed more power, much more than even the Relentless's massive engines could provide. What about the gateway? She muttered, studying the energy calculations again. The Perseus Gateway was humanity's greatest engineering achievement, a massive structure that could bend space itself. Its power output was thousands of times greater than any ship's. Her eyes widened. That's it. She rushed to the main console, fingers flying across the controls. The gateway doesn't just use quantum energy. It creates quantum anomalies, the same kind this weapon was designed to harness. The engineering team gathered around her as she explained her idea. It was crazy, dangerous, and probably impossible. It was also their only chance. "Get me Admiral Thompson," she ordered, and moments later his face appeared on the main screen. "Please tell me you have good news, Roberts," Thompson said, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. "Sir, we can make Project Dawn work, but we need to connect it directly to the gateway's power core." She held up a hand before he could object. "I know how it sounds, but the ancient designs were meant to work with exactly this kind of quantum technology." Thompson was quiet for a long moment. "The gateway is our last line of defense. If something goes wrong, if we do nothing, we lose everything anyway," Maria countered. "The void will be here in less than 2 hours. We need to try." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Do it. I'll have the gateway crews standing by to help." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Maria's team worked alongside gateway engineers to route massive power conduits into the testing chamber. The prototype hummed louder with each new connection, its surface beginning to glow with an inner light. "Power levels at 90%, Tom announced. "Core temperature rising, but within limits." Maria checked the final connections herself. Everything looked right, but doubt gnawed at her mind. The ancient race had left warnings about their weapon. What if there was a reason they'd abandoned this technology? "Ma'am," one of the gateway engineers called out, "we're picking up some strange readings from the quantum core. It's resonating with something." Maria rushed to his station. The readings showed waves of quantum energy pulsing through the prototype, but they weren't coming from the gateway. They were coming from the approaching void. "It's responding to us," she whispered. "The weapon, the void. They're connected somehow." A decision had to be made. The prototype was ready for testing, but firing it could do more than just stop the void. It could change everything they thought they knew about space, time, and humanity's place in the universe. "Begin final firing sequence," she ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "All personnel clear the testing chamber." As klaxons sounded and her team rushed to their safe positions, Maria took one last look at Project Dawn. The ancient weapon glowed brighter now, like a newborn star ready to burst into life. In less than an hour, they would know if they'd built humanity's salvation or its doom. She sealed the chamber doors and walked to the control room. It was time to find out what the ancients had really left them, and why they'd been so afraid of their own creation. The bridge of the Relentless fell silent as the massive view screen showed the approaching wall of darkness. The void moved like a living thing, swallowing stars and leaving absolute nothingness in its wake. Before it, the Dominion fleet hung in space, their ships forming a defensive line alongside human vessels. Admiral Thompson stood at the center of the bridge, watching as centuries of hatred dissolved in the face of extinction. The Dominion High Command had arrived just minutes ago, their proud warships now sharing formation with human cruisers. "Time to contact," Thompson asked, his voice cutting through the silence. 45 minutes until the void reaches our position," Lieutenant Rogers replied, his hand steady on the controls despite his fear. "The Dominion fleet is in position. Commander Tech's separatist ships are providing support to our flanks." A message flashed on Thompson's personal screen. Maria Roberts was reporting from the Weapon Control Center. Project Dawn was ready, but they would only get one shot at this. "Open a channel to the Dominion flagship," Thompson ordered. The face of High Commander Vex appeared on the screen, his alien features set in a grim expression. "The weapon is ready," Thompson said without preamble, "but we'll need your fleet's help to make this work." Vex was silent for a moment. "You ask us to trust an untested weapon based on technology neither of us fully understands. I'm asking you to trust that we both want the same thing: survival." Thompson gestured to the tactical display. "Your ships have better shield technology. We need you to form a protective barrier around Project Dawn while we power it up. Without your help, we'll never get the chance to fire it." The Dominion commander's eyes narrowed. "And why should we risk our remaining ships?" "Because Commander Tech was right." Thompson met Vex's gaze. "Our ancestors fought together once. They left us this weapon for a reason. We can either work together now or die separately." Warning alarms blared across the bridge. The void had suddenly accelerated, cutting their time in half. They now had barely 20 minutes before it reached them. Vex straightened in his chair. "Very well, Admiral. We will protect your weapon. But know this: if you betray us, what remains of our fleet will ensure humanity's extinction before the void claims us all." "Understood." Thompson turned to his crew. "All ships, battle formations. Coordinate with Dominion vessels for maximum shield coverage. Engineering team, begin power-up sequence for Project Dawn." The next 15 minutes were a blur of activity. The combined fleet moved with precision that would have seemed impossible just hours ago. Dominion warships interlocked their shield systems in complex patterns, creating a protective bubble around the human vessels carrying Project Dawn. "The void is reacting to the weapon's power signature," Rogers reported, his voice tense. "It's changing course, coming straight for us." Thompson watched as the wall of darkness shifted, now moving directly toward their position. The weapon had definitely got its attention, but was that good or bad? "Project Dawn at full power," Maria's voice came through the comm system. "Ready to fire on your command, Admiral." "But sir," the energy readings we're getting from the void, "they're almost identical to the weapon's signature." Thompson felt a chill run down his spine. The ancient race's warnings about the weapon suddenly made more sense. They weren't just fighting the void. They were about to communicate with it. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. "This is humanity's moment. Let's show the universe what we can do when we work together." The void loomed before them, close enough now that it filled the entire view screen. In the protective bubble created by Dominion shields, Project Dawn hummed with power, ready to unleash energies not seen in 50,000 years. Thompson took a deep breath. Everything, human, Dominion, perhaps even the galaxy itself, hinged on what happened in the next few minutes. Fire. Light exploded from Project Dawn, brighter than 1,000 suns. The combined fleet watched in awe as the beam of pure quantum energy struck the approaching wall of darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the void began to change. Instead of the empty blackness they had feared, colors began to swirl within the darkness. The void wasn't destroying everything it touched. It was transforming it. "Energy patterns are shifting." Maria's voice crackled through the comm system. "The void. It's responding to the weapon. But this isn't an attack. It's more like a key turning in a lock." The darkness parted like a curtain being drawn back, revealing something that made every human and Dominion crew member catch their breath. A massive structure hung in space before them, ancient beyond imagining yet somehow familiar. "Sir," Rogers whispered, checking his instruments again and again. "Those energy readings, they're human in origin. But that's impossible. Their reading is thousands of years more advanced than our technology." A new signal cut through all communication channels. The message was in perfect English, yet it also transmitted simultaneously in the Dominion language. "The test is complete," a calm voice announced. "Both species have exceeded expectations." Admiral Thompson stepped forward. "Identify yourself." "We are what humanity becomes," the voice replied. "What both our species become when we finally learn to work together. We are your descendants, testing you as we ourselves were once tested. On the bridge of the relentless, humans and Dominions alike tried to process this revelation. The void hadn't been a weapon or a natural disaster. It had been a test, created by their own distant descendants. You forced us into this situation. High Commander Vex spoke up, anger in his voice. Made us flee our homes, pushed us to the brink of war. We created circumstances that would force both species to face their greatest challenge, their own pride. The voice was gentle but firm. Only by working together could you unlock the weapon's true purpose. It was never meant to destroy. It was meant to reveal. The massive structure began to glow, and data streamed into every ship's computer. Star charts, scientific formulas, technological blueprints, the combined knowledge of thousands of years of human and Dominion cooperation. This is your inheritance, the voice explained. But it can only be accessed together. The quantum signatures of both species are required to unlock each level of knowledge. This is how we ensure that cooperation, not competition, guides your development. Thompson looked at the tactical display, where human and Dominion ships still held their combined formation. You took quite a risk. We could have destroyed each other instead of working together. We had faith in humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to see solutions where others see only problems. And we had faith in the Dominion's capacity to remember their history, to choose wisdom over pride when it truly mattered. The structure began to fade, its purpose fulfilled, but the knowledge it had provided remained, along with one final message. You stand now at the beginning of a new era. Together, you will build wonders that neither species could achieve alone. And someday, far in your future, you will help create us, the civilization that set this test in motion. The circle completes itself. As the structure disappeared entirely, Thompson turned to his bridge crew. Human officers worked side by side with the Dominion representatives who had come aboard during the crisis, all of them studying the amazing data they had been given. Well, Thompson said with a slight smile, it seems we have a lot of work ahead of us. High Commander Vex nodded, looking at the star charts that showed the countless worlds waiting to be explored together. Indeed we do, Admiral. Indeed we do. The Relentless's engines hummed as it turned toward the Perseus Gateway, leading the combined fleet home. Behind them, the last traces of the void faded away, its test complete. Before them lay a future brighter than either species had imagined possible, a future they would build together, one discovery at a time.